That same evening, another acquaintance called Henry and later told police that it sounded as though Henry had gotten into an altercation with someone in the middle of the call. Strangely, even though Corinne McCabe, Henry's wife, mentioned that the sounds her husband was making during the call were extremely out of character for him, who was usually perfectly articulate, she only made a single call to one of Henry's friends to try and get him to pick up her husband, and when she didn't get a response, she went right back to bed. Even more strangely, during her questioning, Corinne repeatedly told the cops that she knew Henry was alive, even though she didn't have the evidence to prove it directly. After this extremely disturbing voicemail was recorded, Henry's phone records show that he called a Texas number that he had called over 20 times that day, but when the cops tried to trace the number, it came up as no longer in service. It's impossible to know if the calls themselves were made by Henry or someone else, but after the unsettling conversation with his wife, phone records show that several calls were made from Henry's phone to that same now disconnected number in the days following his disappearance. As the investigation went on, things continued to get stranger. Suspiciously, the cops never found footage of William's red car pulling up to the gas station where he had supposedly dropped Henry off, even though they checked the entire night's footage from all angles. William later ended up changing his story and alleged that as soon as he dropped Henry off, he immediately got back in the car and William dropped him off at another gas station a couple of miles away. It was later revealed by a confidential FBI informant that during the searches that took place after the disappearance, Emmanuel, the host of the barbecue, and a group of 3 other men would often stand a few feet away from the rest of the search party and talk suspiciously among themselves. Still, it was never determined if they had anything to do with the disappearance. On October 2nd, almost a month after Henry went missing, a strange anonymous letter was sent to the New Brighton Police Department a few miles from where Henry went missing. The letter read, "Henry McCabe, his body next to water, partially buried. Needs search dog to find. Witness who saw burial scared, female young, asked to come forward. Can remain anonymous and will protect." On November 2nd, the cops found Henry's body in Rush Lake, a few miles from where Henry had supposedly been dropped off on the night of his disappearance. Mysteriously, they didn't find any signs of foul play on his body, even though the anonymous letter suggests he was buried by someone else. Despite the lack of evidence on his body, it's possible that he was either forcibly drowned by a group of assailants, that he took his own life, or that something entirely different took place that night. The only thing we know for sure is that this is an extremely strange case that we'll probably never get a conclusive explanation for.